One thing I'm not is a liar, so that is false. If you are dishing it out, you do have to be prepared to get some backlash from it. Harriet would walk off crying or she'd be upset. And then I then knew that I'm looking like the nasty one because I'm not getting upset. So I was worried thinking, I don't want this to look bad on me.
You thought that a certain islander was laughing.
And she was.
Oh.
She was laughing at that time. That was not like editing anything away.
Oh my God! Not you popping back for all the tea. You love the gossip, don't you? It's all right. We're going to be spilling loads today. You're watching the reality podcast with Will and Jovi. Do not forget to subscribe or give us an audio rating if you are loving this show. Now, it is the week before the final week of Love Island. So we've got to get all the gossip. Today's guest is the prize. It's Jess, everybody!
Hey!
Jess, you are just iconic. Jess, are you the prize?
I like to think so.
Yes.
My own prize, anyway.
Love that. How are you feeling being out the villa?
Oh my God, it's been amazing. It's been insane. Like, to go from just like working in a supermarket, you know, no one kind of knew who you were. So then like coming out, and I remember I was in the airport on the way home from Mallorca, and this young girl comes, she's like, "Oh my God, I love you, Jess." And I was like, "Sorry, what?" And I was like, "This is so weird." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry you think it's weird." I said, "No, you're not weird. So this situation is weird because I'm so not used to it."
So hold on. So were you working in a supermarket right before the show?
I was a manager at Marks Spencer's.
I love this for you.
All the retails are available.
Do you know what? I love the Marks and Spencer's cocktail cans.
8%.
Iconic.
Are you joking?
Iconic.
Two of them, you're on a different planet.
Yeah,
honestly, they are amazing.
Wow. So I guess because it's true, when you travel to the show, no one knows you're going on. So it's like all incognito. But then when you come back, it's all of this kind of wherever you go. So like, have you been out and about in London? Because I know you're in London at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, so I came, when I was back in Manchester, I had a few days back home and I was like going out, I went to Trafford Centre, which is like a big sort of shopping market. And literally everyone was like coming up to me, kind of have pictures. And everyone kind of does that thing where it's like, that's her from Love Island. But some people don't actually want to come and ask you for a photo. But then there was like a few people that were like, "Oh my God, that's Jess from Love Island."
No.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is so insane. But then again, being in London this week, it's probably been even more like vamped up. But it's been amazing. Like everyone has been so lovely and like really kind. And yeah, I'm just enjoying it. It just is a very strange feeling to be so normal. And then, I mean, I'm still normal. Do you know what I mean? I'm still just a normal person. But to come out and then people know who you are. And because they've seen you on TV, they kind of do think they know you. When obviously they've only seen a small snippet of you. But it's been lovely.
Yeah. And have you had time to watch the show back? You've probably seen like all the clips and edits on TikTok and stuff, but have you actually sat down and like watched from episode 1? Are you going to do that? Are you not going to do it?
When I came home that first day, I was like, right, let's get the first episode on. I want to watch them all.
Let's binge it.
Let's do it. And I'll be honest with you, I think I watched one and was like, I've got too much to do. I can't watch anymore. The only episode that I watched back was the heart rate challenge. And that was the only one that I've watched back. I am going to try and watch some more back, but I've just been going off clips on TikTok and Instagram, and to be honest with you, some of them are cringing me out anyway, so maybe I'll just deal with them and not be able to watch the episodes back.
I'm screaming. So then let's rewind back to kind of like the beginning or the earliest stages of your journey.
The first guy I was coupled with Ronnie.
It was Ronnie, yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't, you didn't get to pick. They did like,
yes,
it was like your most boyfriend and girlfriend material. And we both got third, which is quite rude because actually I've been in the longest relationship out of everybody. But anyway, I'll take third as opposed to last. But yeah, it didn't get done like, it was very different to how they'd done it in the past. Because he wouldn't have been someone that I'd coupled up with to begin with.
Really?
No, I would have gone with Sean. Like initially, like I don't know how much was shown, but when Sean came in, me and Sean were like giving each other these eyes, and I thought he's really fit. So we came in together. Yeah, like Sean was like would have been my type, and then obviously because it didn't go that way, and you coupled with Ronnie, then I just got to know Ronnie, and it kind of developed from there. But initial attraction, I would have wanted to couple up with Sean.
So let's talk about the developing.
Yeah.
So as you got to know Ronnie, what was it that you liked about him when you started to obviously grow to like him?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm massive on looks are obviously important, but for me, personality is more important. So in terms of his personality, we got on really well because we were both had the same kind of banter. We got on really well in that sense. So I think for me, that was more what it was about us getting on. Like, we used to laugh with each other, wind each other up. Like, he could say what he wanted to me, didn't offend me. Likewise, I could say what I wanted to him. And we just kind of bounced off each other. And that's where then the attraction developed, because it was a personality to begin with.
Yeah, and then it must get quite hard when you're now in the midst of a love triangle. So when
What are
Harriet,
you talking about?
when Harriet's in the equation,
Yeah.
that must have been a bit tricky because obviously I
Yeah.
guess you want to be a girl's girl, but you
Yeah.
do have an attraction to this
Yeah.
guy at the same time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was uncomfortable. And I think as well, like on the outside, you would when you first start chatting to somebody, you wouldn't know if that person's chatting to somebody else. It's kind of outside of mind, like you can do what you want. But obviously, it's a lot more intense in that environment. And when you're seeing it in front of you, it becomes a lot more like you feel a lot more like it's affecting you. Whereas on the outside, I won't give a hoot. I'm not arsed because I can't see it. But when it's literally in front of you, naturally, feelings are a lot more intense in there. Like everyone always comes in and goes, "You've only been together a week. Why are you so bothered?" Let's remember, you're sharing a bed with somebody. You're with them 24 hours a day. On the outside, you might have only seen them once in 2 weeks. So feelings naturally do develop a lot quicker than they would do on the outside. So yeah, it was uncomfortable to be in a situation like that. But equally, you know what you signed up for when you went on the show, and you knew that them kind of things would potentially be thrown to you, and it was in my case.
Yeah. And I want to know, right, like, do you feel like that whole love triangle situation kind of like ruined any chance of you and Harriet actually having some sort of a genuine friendship? Because it must have just been like so sticky and kind of hard for there to be any sort of a stable bond between you two.
I think the thing is with me and Harriet, again, like I'm not sure how much of it's kind of played out, but we actually did get on really well. Like we had some wonderful times in there. Like we got on really well. I'll be honest, like I said this from the beginning, like on the outside, we probably would never be friends just because we're very different people from very different places. So I'd be lying if I sat here and said she was going to be like Nicole and Samantha, they're the girls that I would be friends with on the outside. Yeah. Harriet probably wouldn't be that person, but in there, you're thrusted into an environment where you do make friendships with people maybe you wouldn't necessarily make friendships with. So we actually did get on really well, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was just because of Ronnie that we didn't see eye to eye with everything. It just so happened that they were the common denominators of our bickers, but likewise, there was also times in there where I was there for her with Ronnie. There was times where Ronnie'd upset her, vice versa, and I was there to give her support and help her and give her advice. And it wasn't a case of me trying to scare her off, Ronnie. It was more a case of her trying to be there as a friend. And again, I think not a lot of girls would do that. They'd just be like, I hope it goes wrong and I hope it doesn't work out, and I'll sit back and laugh. But that was never something that I ever wanted to do. I always wanted the best for her. And it was kind of like this sister relationship that we had. And I think I even said to at one point, like, we're like sisters. Like sometimes I see you as like an annoying little sister, and like that's not even to be patronising. That was just to be like, sometimes sisters have bickers and they row and they have big arguments, but then they can make up and you can have some wonderful times. And that's kind of what our relationship was like. Yeah. I feel like anyway.
But I feel like, and I'm happy you've kind of explained it in that way as well, because I feel like maybe from the outside, some people just felt like it was just this kind of constant and ongoing feud.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, don't get me wrong, out of everybody in there, the only person that I ever really had disagreements with was Harriet.
Yeah.
But we also had some like really nice times with each other, and we got on and we had a laugh. And I think probably more towards the end of like the time that she was in there, I think it got to a point where for me, I was like, the only thing that was having like a negative impact on my time in that villa was this constant rowing. Like I'm not someone that rows with people. Like I'll have a disagreement with my friends at home. We'll hash it out. We'll move on from it. I don't have any grudges. But I kind of felt like there was always a grudge being held against me, thinking, you just want Ronnie, you just want Ronnie. And that was never the case. Like, I didn't want Ronnie towards the end. That's why I didn't pick him at the recoupling. And yeah, like, people don't see, but I know it got shown that Harriet was always upset and she was crying when we'd had these arguments. That doesn't mean that I wasn't upset in them situations. Like, there's times off camera where I'd go to the beach or I'd go outside and sit to Villa Producer, then I'd get upset too because...
Really?
Yeah, I was... So there was times that I was in the beach and I was, like, really upset because I was thinking, I don't want people in here to think that that I'm making somebody upset because I'm not that way inclined. I would never want to see someone upset and because of me. And they were, like, really, like, reassuring. It was like, Jess, if you were the reason that somebody was, we wouldn't allow you in this villa. Like, you wouldn't be allowed to stay here if we thought you weren't behaving or speaking to somebody in the right kind of way. So don't ever forget that. But I think where people never necessarily saw that on camera and they just saw me as this like hard nut who kind of didn't really give one, it kind of can come across like I wasn't interested and I was kind of enjoying it, and I wasn't. Like, no one wants to argue with somebody, especially somebody that you did form a relationship with. Yeah. But again, like, people just don't necessarily see that side.
Yeah. So I was actually watching GK Barry's podcast yesterday where I think Harriet was on it. And she basically spoke about, I think it was the time before she was about to go on the date with Ronnie. She said that she kind of came up to you to kind of like speak to you, and she said that she felt that maybe you gave her the cold shoulder. Would you kind of like agree to that, or would you say that maybe like that wasn't really what happened?
No, so I think I can't remember. I think we were all in the dressing room and she came up to me and she like tried to give me a hug and she was like with all the girls and she's like, I'm really sorry, I hope everything's okay. And I was like, Harriet, like, we don't need to have this conversation. Like, I kind of felt like all eyes were on me in that situation, as if like I was really upset about it when I was really happy for her. Like, go and enjoy your date. But I felt like there was pressure on me to feel upset about the situation when I was actually fine. So it was more just a case of me being like, we don't need to have this conversation. Like, I'm happy for you. You go and enjoy your date. It doesn't need to be made into a thing of like, oh, pity party for Jess because Harriet and Ronnie were going on a date. Like, that was kind of old to me. Like, go and enjoy your date and have a wonderful time. It wasn't a case of me giving her a cold shoulder. It was just a case of me being like, this doesn't need to be made a big situation, which obviously it then was made a big situation. And that's what I didn't want, because why would I be arsed? Like, you go on your date and you enjoy it and have a wonderful time. Like, it wasn't something that needed to kind of be voiced, I don't feel like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense for sure. But some people on social media were annoyed and actually quite fuming at what happened after their date. You know what I'm about to say?
I know what you're about to say. I know what you're about to say.
So you and Ronnie obviously had a chat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie said to you that if you didn't choose Sean, things may have been different.
Yeah.
And you then went back to Harriet and relayed that back to Harriet. And people feel like the conversation which we saw with you and Ronnie wasn't the truth of what you said back to Harriet. So people basically feel like you were lying. So kind of, what do you say to that?
One thing I'm not is a liar, so that is false. Basically, what had actually happened that night, can I just point out as well, people have kind of commented on like timings of that conversation and kind of said, you should never have had that conversation at that time after the date. Anyone who's been on that TV show or knows about TV, certain conversations you're asked to have at certain times. I would never usually have chosen to have a conversation at that time. You know, it's their date, but we're all aware that we're making a TV show. So that's the first thing on it. Second thing was, earlier that night, wasn't on the edit, you know, our favourite line. Kieran.
Sorry, pause. Every single Islander who walks into the studio, it wasn't shown.
Wasn't on the edit. That's our excuse all the time.
Blaming it on the edit. Sorry,
Blaming it on the edit. Here I go. No.
Sorry, continue.
So, blaming it on the edit. Me and Kieran had a chat after they'd gone on their date, and Kieran had said, I've got something I need to tell you. And I was like, oh gosh, here we go. What are you going to drop on me now? And he was like, did you know that Ronnie had said to the boys the day of the recoupling, when you chose Sean, he was going to tell Harriet that he was 100% for you? But obviously, he never got the chance to tell me that because then I picked Sean. So in my head, I was then a bit like, Jesus, like, had I have known this information, things may have slightly been different. I mean, I'm glad they weren't because it all worked out in the end. However, if I'd have known that information, things maybe would have been a little bit different.
Wait. So Ronnie said the 100% line?
Yes. Kieran said to me.
Oh, so he actually said this?
It.
Oh,
this is what I'm saying.
gosh.
Or this is how Kieran delivered it to me. So Kieran said to me he was going to tell Harriet he was 100% for you and that he was going to put all of his effort into you. Kieran said those words to me. Whether they were what Ronnie said to him to begin with, I don't know. But Kieran came to me on the beanbags with that information. So that's why when I went to Ronnie, I said to him, what was going to happen? Because I've obviously heard that you'd said you were going to be 100% for me, And he then come back to me and said, yeah, that is what was said, but obviously things panned out differently and it never went that way. So that's why when I went to Harry and explained that to her, that's where I didn't make it up. I wouldn't lie. I'm a very, like, we're on a like, you can't lie. Like, everything can be shown. And had I have lied, like, it would have come out. So I was being, like, that is literally what had been said. So it's obviously just been a poor edit, should we say, about what actually had the conversation had been.
Not just blaming it on the edit. I can't breathe.
But honestly, when Kieran comes out, he's got the receipts. He best have the receipts because that is what was said. Otherwise, I would never have said it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the thing is as well, what I said to Harriet in that conversation, I was like, because she was really upset about it, and I get it's not nice to hear, but I was like, we need to remember that this conversation was had 3 weeks ago. So this is not relevant information right now. This was 3 weeks before, because since me, he's been chatting to Tiffany. So there's other people then involved in that situation where I'd kind of been dropped out. So I was like, we need to remember that, like, this was 3 weeks ago. He's not saying that this is how he feels now. He doesn't feel that way now, neither do I. He's saying 3 weeks ago, before he really even had that many chats with you, that he would have picked me at that time. Right now, he's happy with you. And he even said to her, I was like, he's had a wonderful date with you. He said some amazing things about you. He's really happy where things are going. That's just how he felt 3 weeks ago. But again, obviously she was homing in on, well, like all girls do, was just homing on the negative to it. And I get that. Like, I would do the same. But that's what I was just trying to instill in her, was that, like, this is what was said 3 weeks ago. It wasn't a case that he's sitting here now going, I want you, Jess. He never said that. He was more than happy with Harriet and they were developing their connection without me in the picture. For me, it was just I wanted closure on that situation because I'd been given information that I was never aware of at the time that we'd had that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is fair enough. And I think you said to Harriet, you can give it, but you can't take it. Do you kind of still stand by that with everything that's happened?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, for me, I've got thick skin, so like I can like, and I've always said this, like I'll say what my opinions are, and I'll be straight up and honest. But also, anyone can say what they want to me, and I will take it. Like, I laugh at it if I don't agree with it. I'll say, you know what, everyone's entitled to an opinion. And I think the thing is that where me and Harriet were very different is like I live by that. Like, I can take it. I'm very thick skinned. I've not always been, but over the years I've become thick skinned. Yeah. And I think where Harriet did have these, and it wasn't just with me, there was other Islanders in there that obviously she did have disagreements with, is that I always kind of said, like, there's some of the things that she did say to other Islanders they could have got really upset over. I know some of the comments to Kieran were quite offensive. So, like, for me, it's like, on that scene in particular, was like, where she really came for Kieran in terms of his immaturity and his age and that kind of thing, that could be really offensive to somebody. So then, I'm not saying he was warranted what he said back to her, because it wasn't necessarily a nice thing he said back to her, and it's not nice to speak to a woman in that way. However, if you are dishing it out, you do have to be prepared to get some backlash from it. And that was all I ever tried to say was, if you are giving it out, be prepared for somebody to say something back to you, because that is the way in which the world is. So, like, you can't sit there and then if somebody gives it back, then if you get upset and then it's like, oh, everyone, like, pity party on me kind of thing. It's kind of like, if you give it, you have to sit there and go, you know what, I've said something bad about you, you're not going to have to come at me for something. Yeah. And it's vice versa. If you're dishing it out and if you're getting it and no one said anything in the first place, well then fair enough, that isn't nice because you've not done anything to warrant it. But if you're giving it out, you do have to kind of be prepared for some backlash from that. Yeah. And that's all I ever really did say. But yeah, I still stand by that. I do stand by that because that's how I am and that's how my friends and stuff are, and I think that's how everyone should be. No?
Yeah. And is there anything you'd want to get off your chest and say to her at the reunion?
I don't know. The thing is, it's a really awkward one because obviously when she left, like, I'd kind of said to the producers, I was like, at the end, I was like, I kind of don't want, the only thing that's having a negative impact on my experiences here is this, like, back and forward drama with Harriet. Like, I'm having such a good time and I get on so with everybody and I'm having such a laugh with everyone. But this is, like, having a real negative impact on my experience. Like, that's the one thing, like, I'm dreading, like, these conversations. And where the story kind of does have to pan out, we did have to keep having these conversations to get back on track again. And it got to a point where I was like, I'm not prepared to do this anymore because I don't want, because every time we do have this conversation, Harriet would walk off crying or she'd be upset. And then I then knew that I'm looking like the nasty one because I'm not getting upset. So I was worried thinking, I don't want this to look bad on me.
No, do you know what? Let me interrupt here. Let me say my piece, right? Jess, like, you're allowed to say what needs to be said, right? The way people react, in my opinion, is just the way they react. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean that what you've said is the wrong thing. It's just that you've said what you've said, right? Yeah. And I don't think that you should be worried or concerned about that, as long as you know that you're getting across the real version of what needs to be said. Yeah. And in my opinion, we should be honest with people. I don't think you were shouting at anybody. No. I don't think you were yelling at anybody. Yeah. So I think the fact that you felt like you had to be like tiptoey isn't kind of, you know.
And this is a thing. I got to a point where I said any conversation that I was having with her, I felt like it was being twisted. So there was a conversation we'd had at the daybeds where she'd then stormed off after it. I didn't even get a word in edgeways, and she'd gone to the girls and gone, she's shouting at me. I didn't raise my voice once. So I said to the producer, I was like, every conversation I have, it gets twisted, and then all the people in the villa are thinking Jess is shouting, Jess is not. I hadn't done any of them things.
All right, do you know what?
So that's
Jess,
why I said I'm not having these conversations anymore.
Jess, girl, you know I love you, but let's be real here. Like, let's be real here, right? Let's talk about your delivery. Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes, right, your delivery may be a little bit harsh? And I think sometimes in life, if you know that somebody is sensitive or if somebody cries a lot, maybe with them you might have to, like, communicate your message in a different way. Do you feel like maybe there could be something like that with Harriet, where maybe if you do speak to her at the reunion, there's communicating with her in another way so she doesn't cry, so that we can come to some sort of a truce? How do you feel about your delivery and maybe the way you communicate messages to people?
I mean, I'll be honest, I know my delivery sometimes is maybe a bit too much. Like, I get that. But I'm Northern. We're very dramatic. We say what we feel. And sometimes there is elements where you say something and you go, oh, I probably shouldn't have said it in that way, or maybe that didn't need to be said. But I'm true to myself, and people do say things, and then in hindsight, you look back and go, that maybe didn't need to be said that way, you didn't need to say anything that way. But I don't live in regrets. Like, everything I do, like, I'm honest with it, and I'll hold my hands up if I do feel like I've done something wrong. And maybe sometimes with Harriet, there was probably things where I probably needed to just tread a little bit more carefully. But where I am, like, I am real, and I was being so true to myself that in that moment, I reacted the way I reacted, and that's how I am. And if I'd reacted any different way, people would have been at home with my friends and been like, what's she doing? That's not her. She wouldn't do that at home. So I've been so true to myself, and maybe a conversation could be had with Harriet, because, like I say, there was some wonderful times that we had together. Like, we did get on.
So you can't ruin that then. You have to communicate with her and let her know. You can't because, look, at the moment, like on TikTok, there's this narrative like, oh my gosh, Jess, Harriet, and as you said, this doesn't need to be a thing because I guess maybe we didn't see all the scenes where, we did see some scenes where you and Harriet were cool, but maybe we didn't see all of it as you're describing. So there has to be, in my opinion, I think there should be room for you to maybe have that convo of her at the reunion, or even if you see her out at a party or something, just so that it's, because that one thing can't ruin your whole experience.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like for me, that's the only thing that was negative about my experience. So I've not got, I know I think she's been on some podcast where she said like she doesn't want to speak to me ever again, and that's fine if that's how she wants to play it. I don't hold grudges.
Why do you think she feels that way? That's a strong thing to say. I don't want to speak to someone ever again. Why do you think she feels that way? Why do you think Harriet feels that way about you?
I think she thinks I've been saying things behind her back that's kind of been aired and then she's now been shown. And I don't really think I have said anything behind her back that I hadn't ever said to her face. I think half the problem is that I did say it to her face. And I think one thing people can't say about me is that I'm two-faced, because I'm not. Everything that, even like on the movie night segment, all the clips that were shown, they were me speaking to those people about. So they weren't necessarily me being two-faced behind anybody's back. It was just clips of me being quite loud and being very blunt, which is all things that everybody's already aware I am anyway. But if she wants to have a conversation with me and we can chat about the things I said, I'm more than happy to do that. But I don't feel like I have said things behind her back.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you love reality TV and all the drama. It's the home of the Reality with Will and Jovi podcast, where I cover all your favourite shows. I want to see you twerk one day, man. I know you've got it in you.
You got to pay me.
And Judge Will, where I help the public solve their crazy dilemmas.
I was literally with him last night.
Are you okay?
It is what it is, isn't it?
And yeah, I will complain about money because you're broke.
Say nothing.
I'm saying
No, say it with your chest, innit?
Make sure you subscribe to get all the gossip here first. That deadline
Failed miserably.
Okay, but let's discuss, because this was my take at the time. My take was that, girl. If you have to set a deadline for a man, it's not even a thing. It should never even be a thing. At that point, you should know that if you have to tell a man, right, choose between, or let me know how you feel, that means that deep down you know that this one's a bit.
Yeah.
So why do you feel like you got to that stage? Because that's what was grinding my gears as a viewer.
Yeah.
I was like, babe,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? From time you have to set a deadline, you should know that you're better than this and you should just be looking elsewhere. So what's your take on that deadline?
I don't. Maybe I was just in lust. I'm not sure, because now I look back, I'm like, what was you doing?
No, but this
is what happened.
Lust, exactly.
And I think that's what it was. I was like, and this is where like I was looking at myself and I was like, what are you actually doing, Jess? Like, you are actually being a mug. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But I was just allowing it to happen. And then now I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? Like
I love this. No, but guys, accountability is everything.
I was being a mug, and I will take it. I was being mugged off.
One thing I do like about you, Jess, is that you are honest in every way. If you've been mugged off, you'll be honest about it.
I was being mugged off.
If you feel like someone's mugging you off, you will be honest about it.
That's what I said in my coupling speech, wasn't it? I don't know if I even said, I think I'm just being mugged off. But I literally was being mugged off, and like I was literally like, what am I actually doing with my life here? Like, I'm actually allowing this man who I've known 2 weeks, if that, to literally take the mick out of me. So yeah, it got to a point, and then I was just like, right. And then I think I just had like an awakening in the shower. So we got the text through, and it was like, there'll be a recoupling tonight. And then I was washing my hair, just thinking to myself, and I was like, what are you doing? I had an epiphany. I was like, sort your life out. Stop being mugged off. And also, I also kind of thought, I was starting to speak to Sean, and like, obviously I was thinking back to, this is another thing, people have kind of been like, you were using Sean. No, I was not using Sean, because anyone in there will know that Sean was my initial type on paper. So, oh my God, on paper, how cringe. But Sean was that is
another Love Island saying. She is officially in my type on paper. I don't continue.
So literally, he was gonna be like, he would have been the person I would have coupled with. So I was like, I owe it to myself and also to him to explore that connection, where I'm kind of saying like, I don't want to be a part of like a triangle situation. So if I'm removing myself from a triangle there, then Sean doesn't deserve to be in a triangle either. So I need to give him kind of my full attention. I've never been like I keep saying a 2-woman man, but I'm not. It's a two-man woman. So it was kind of like I needed to give Sean that full attention to see what could develop from there. But yeah, obviously, it's just one of them things, but I think I did get mugged off for more than I would get mugged off for on the outside.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. That's another Love Island saying.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Literally. What did you think of Sean's behaviour in Casa Amor when you were you shocked?
I was shocked, yeah. I didn't know the boy had it in him. I mean,
I didn't know he had it in him either.
Here he is, like the little sweetest man alive, and then here we go. But yeah, I was shocked. To be honest, like I feel like you just never know in them situations anyway, like who is going to sway. You just never know. And obviously, where him and Matilda were quite early on, and Matilda was getting to know people in there, so it's kind of like it was always like to potential that he could, but to find out he was getting on with like he was in his own little Casa triangle. I mean, what the hell?
It's crazy.
It was wild.
It's bonkers.
I mean, he cacked his pants when we went back. His face, he looked like he was so nervous.
Really?
Oh my god, yeah, his face was like he was like this the entire time. And every time I tried to look at him, he would like give me this side at the recoupling, like shaking his head, and I was like, because I walked in after, so I didn't know the drama of what had happened. I just thought, oh my god, they're back together. This is amazing. And then Matilda was looking at me like, pointing to the girls at Casa, and I was like, what? And then we were getting told off for talking because she was trying to explain to me. Obviously, she'd had the row before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what? And they're like, stop talking. And then Sean was looking at me like, so I was like, something's obviously happened here, but I did not know what it was until after.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a shock.
So while we're on this Casa Amor recoupling, obviously, you know, you were going viral again during that period. As you do, Jess.
Always.
As you do. That's because you thought that a certain islander was laughing.
And she was. She was laughing at that time. That was not like edited in any way. So the only reason I said that is because the time when Uma was upset, that person was laughing at that exact moment.
Really?
Yeah, and another thing that
I thought maybe it's just the thing where, you know, like that, like, I thought,
No,
what?
no. So that was exactly all happened in real time. So when...
Eesh.
Yeah. So that actually happened in real time.
What?
And what you won't know as well is that Maya actually called her out and said, what are you laughing at then?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Are you being serious?
Deadly serious, yeah. So when I said that and...
no!
Yeah.
Jess is dropping bombshells!
The tea.
Oh my...
No, she said that. So Maya... actually said, so what is it that's funny then if you're not laughing at that situation? It got cut. So
Maya is too much.
Maya is also providing facts and, you know, being straight up. So yeah, Maya actually said, what is it that you're laughing at? Like, can you explain what you're finding funny?
Because obviously, look, I know we're going back to the edit. Not the Love Island link.
It's at this point, that's an iconic line.
Right. So obviously, when you're watching the show, it was all kind of like cut.
Yeah.
Cut. So, you know, obviously when the islander was kind of just like, you know, Jess allow it and whatever, we just thought, oh, you know, was Jess just piping up?
No.
So I think that some people on TikTok might have just thought, TikTok viewers
Typical
everywhere.
Jess
might have
piping
just
up,
thought,
yeah.
typical Jess. I think that was kind of like what people initially thought. So I'm glad that you've kind of explained what really happened.
Yeah. So that's what happened. That's the tea on that.
Well, we can now talk about Hugo, and I think you've spoken quite fond of him actually.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're quite glad that someone like him has come in.
Yeah.
How do you feel about him?
Me and Hugo, it's so early days. Like we were saying this, we've only known each other 3 weeks.
That's another Love Island saying,
It's
by the way.
early
It's
days.
early days. I'm sorry.
It is early days. Like it's so early days, and I feel like when you come out, there's so much pressure to be like this, the next like Peter Andre and Katie Price. You know what I mean? And we're literally just taking, and it's quite nice to be out of the villa with like no pressure.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps like saying to us, "Oh my God, you're not together anymore. What's happening?" All this kind of thing. We were still together, you know, but we were still in a couple together in the villa. So what didn't get aired is like the last week we were actually together like 24 hours a day. Like we spent so much time together. But no, that's boring, isn't it? So viewers aren't going to see that. So we spent so much time together. Like in Casa, we were together 24 hours a day. All in the villa, all the islanders were like, God, you're together all the time. And again, like when you're having normal chats and there's no kind of drama around you, that's never really going to get shown. So I understand why the viewers were really confused. And then the final conversation that I think got aired was us on the terrace where he was like kind of explaining his conversation with Io. But again, the edit didn't show.
Wait, let me interject. Hold on. Let me just jump in there and then you can explain that part. His conversation with Io, he basically said that he thought you were dry.
Yeah.
Now...
That's one thing that we all know isn't true.
100%, as we can see today and as we've seen on the show.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you were kind of like... Again, like, speaking so fondly of him, and he's gone and said that. How do you feel about knowing this?
Yeah. The thing is, so, like, we'd been having conversations all week about how usually when you start speaking to someone, there's, like, red flags, there's things that are kind of happening where you start to think, maybe that's not my person, or I need to compromise with that, blah, blah, blah. But we were both saying that there's none of that happening. And I said, as long as you're always honest with me and I'm always honest with you about things that come up, we'll be fine. So then kind of when he'd mentioned them things to me, I was like, why would you say them things if you don't mean them? And he was like, I was just getting in my head. I was overthinking things. Like, things are put to you.
If you're getting to know somebody and again, you're spending all that time with each other, you only said like only good things about said person, right? And if that person's now gone to somebody else and said, oh, I don't know, like getting a bit dry, and then we're seeing all the Matilda chats, it's kind of like, what does that mean then? Because in my opinion, right, this is my mantra when it comes to love and dating. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
So if someone is going to another person and saying, well, I'm not trying to throw it, I'm just saying this is my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Actions speak louder than words. So if someone's going to someone else and saying this, but then to my face, you're whatever, it's like, do you not feel like, in your opinion, you just wanted some sort of like, I don't know, just a proper real explanation of kind of why that was? Because I think you deserve that.
And we did. And the thing is, this whole conversation on the terrace, it was a long conversation.
Yeah.
And everything was kind of aired. And I was a bit like, well, look, if you think I'm dry, if you think all these things, then no one's forcing you to be here, mate. Like, no one's forcing you to have these conversations. And he was like, no, but I don't feel them kind of way. And I was like, well, you've said it now. I said, so unfortunately, this is now what people are going to think. I said, so you have to deal with that. And he has to explain himself on that as to why he said them things. And obviously, I think he's mortified about the things he has said. But that's on him, not on me. I've been nothing but honest and always been true to myself in the way I'm feeling. And I think part of the thing he was saying was around the fact that he felt like I needed to spend more time with him in there. And I was like, babe, I'm literally with you 24 hours a day. I don't need a man to be with me 24 hours a day on the outside. I've got friendships with my girls. I'm very busy. Like, I don't need to be with someone 24 hours a day. And I did take a step back from in the main villa, but that was so we could get to know the boys. Because had I been with him all the time, it'd probably been like, suffocate me, I need some space, like, leave me alone. So you could never win in that situation. I thought I was doing the best thing by leaving him to his own devices a little bit. But then he was saying he kind of wanted more. And he kind of said to me, like, I'm not really used to an independent woman who doesn't necessarily need me all the time. And obviously that's where I don't need to be with a man 24 hours a day. But, he's living with the consequences of what he said. And again, I don't hold grudges. I'm very aware. We've had numerous conversations. Oh, yeah, loads of times.
And that's a done deal.
Yeah, loads of times.
So the situation kind of is now, you're like, that's in the past. You're getting to know each other and just like seeing where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. We've been on a date. So we've spent all this week together. It's been lovely. And like, we're just putting no pressure on it. We're just enjoying each other's company. Like,
I'm happy that he did take accountability, by the way.
Yeah, he did. And that's all I ever say is like, as long as you're taking accountability for what you've done and holding your hands up, and then no grudges are held. I'm not someone who holds grudges. And if I feel like somebody deserves that chance, then I'll give them it. And I feel like we get on so well, so he deserves that.
Yeah, cool, 100%. And everyone loved you. Well, so many parts in the series, but everyone loved it when Uma decided that she wanted to leave with Will. Everyone kind of loved how you kind of created balance. So obviously Uma was explaining that she wanted to leave with Will. Obviously that's where her heart is.
Yeah.
But I think some of the viewers are probably quite protective over Uma actually in the situation, just because of obviously we've seen the Casa Amor stuff and whatever.
Of course. Yeah,
Not that we're saying that that's the reality now, but obviously at the moment in time people are quite protective over Uma.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think you were as well.
Absolutely.
And I think people were quite happy at the fact that you created balance. It kind of gave her the alternative view and were like, do you need to go? Can you maybe like allow him to wait for you?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that moment? And everyone kind of loved it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, that's how I always try to be. Like, I do always try and be this like voice of reason in there. And I think I was quite a bit with the girls. Like, I've always got their best interest at heart. And for me, it was kind of more of a case of let him wait for you. If it's meant to be, it will be. He'll be there waiting for you. Like, he's unfortunately ruined the last week of you being here, your experience, by his actions. So why not just try and see how you are? And if it's meant to be, he will be waiting for you. And I knew he would be. But I just said, like, try and have a good night's sleep. Let's see how you feel in the morning. But obviously she was so adamant she wanted to leave. But I just wanted to kind of say to her, it's okay if you stay. Like, nobody will think any different of you. Like, you can stay and just try it. But obviously at that point, I think we all kind of knew that they were in love with each other and things were going to develop so quickly like they have done. And it's lovely to see that happening.
It is beautiful to see
I
them
was
on the
just
outside
trying
world,
to come from a point of view as like, you are such a strong woman. And unfortunately, he has disrespected you in this situation. Let him see how that feels, kind of thing. Like, let him hold off for you. You've had to wait a couple of days for him in Casa, come back to the way he's treated you and the things he'd done. Let him wait for you on the outside. But she didn't want to do that, and that was fine. I respect the decision either way, but I always just try to give like a balanced opinion as to other scenarios that
which is fair play. Which is fair play.
Yeah, I obviously respected her decision, and it was the right decision in the end. But I did just want to come to him and be like, it is okay if you stay. Like, you're well within your rights to give it a go. Obviously, she didn't want to do that.
But look, it's just so clear that she actually did go on the show for love.
Yeah.
And she's found it
Yeah.
and she's exploring.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think a question that a lot of people had when that happened was, if the tables had turned, would Will have left the villa for Uma?
I think he probably would have.
Really?
I do think he would. Because the thing is with Will, the conversations that I'd had with him, I always said, like, I do believe you're remorseful. Like, I do think he was so upset. Like, when we came back from Casa, he was nearly crying. Like, he was so upset. But what I said to him, where you're letting yourself down is that you aren't showing that in the times you should. So, like, in the movie night, for example, that was his time to show everyone in the villa that he was really remorseful, and he didn't. He kind of acted up in front of the boys. And I had a conversation where I was like, you're not showing that you're sorry. It's almost like you're acting up in front of the boys, which is actually going the opposite way.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he was remorseful. He was. And that's kind of why I do believe he would have left with her had it been the other way around.
Wow, so good on them. Can we just discuss the whole Io, Mimi, Josh, Jess situation? Just wow. Where do we even begin?
Where do we begin?
I mean...
The terrace.
Oh my gosh, right. So the terrorist situation was a lot. Obviously, I think a lot of people didn't like seeing Mimi in that situation. I feel like throughout this whole series, we've seen Mimi try and try again for Io. Do you know what? I was shipping them, by the way, as a couple. Like, and I kind of have still been shipping them up until recently. But I think Io's made it so clear now that he just wants to focus on Jess. But I'm like, hold on. Does he, though?
He's still got feelings.
I know he does.
Yeah.
I know he's still got feelings for Mimi. But there's a lot of things at play. And I think Mimi's even said this, right? Mimi's kind of said, it would just be too messy. Because Josh has had the conversation with Io, and Io said, look, go for it. And then, he's, and Io's had the conversation with Jess and told Jess S. So it's kind of like, if Io now breaks that, then he's almost going against his word against two people.
Yeah.
So it's just all so messy.
So messy.
What do you think?
So me and Mimi had numerous conversations. Like the day after recoupling, she was so upset, and it was just awful to see her like that upset. And she was almost like adamant that like I will never go back there again. Like this is the door is fully closed, never again. But I always knew that there was still something there. Like, you can't turn them feelings off. Yeah. And just before I left, we kind of had this conversation where I was like, "Where are you at now?" And she was like, "Obviously those feelings are very much still there. What do you think?" And I said, "I still think I likes you, but I think." He thinks that the door is shut on your behalf, so therefore there's like a blocker from both of you.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah. And then she kind of like left the door semi-ajar. And the last conversation I had with her was she never said it was fully done. So she changed from how she was a couple of days prior. And then obviously from what I've seen, I just think Mimi has got a lot of feelings because she's such a loyal woman, but I do think she deserves better. Like, it's similar to me, like, know your worth and also almost like, understand like if someone doesn't want you then that's fine, but you are worth so much more than that if that's the case. And I think Io's never going to be 100% with her.
But do you feel like Io knows that he can get Mimi? So he kind of just like
I think he knows. I think he knows how much he knows. One, how loyal she is. Yeah. He knows how much she does like him, and I think he knows kind of that if he did give her that attention, he's kind of just like leading her and like keeping her hanging. He doesn't want to fully shut that door because even when he shut the door and said, I'm going to focus on getting to know Jess, he's still like having them little conversations, them little side eyes. So it's still keeping that little flame inside of Mimi going. But I do think now, I don't think Mimi will go there. I don't think she can't.
But the terrorists though, do we feel like she needed to do that? Like, did she need to, in that moment, do that?
I don't think the terrace was a great idea.
Yeah.
And I also think the fact that he didn't go to the terrace speaks volumes.
Oh my goodness.
Like,
That's when I said,
me,
guys,
yeah,
it is
I'm
done.
I would be done at that point because that is like the next form of like mugging off.
But can I just say, I have seen people dragging Mimi on TikTok because of her doing that. Let's talk about you and your relationships. Let's talk about you because a lot of people have been in real life. Let's talk about you and your relationships. Okay, let's talk about the man who you think you're dating, but he's got your number saved as don't pick up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's talk
girlfriend
about,
number 4.
Let's talk about that. And I think that like the situation we're watching with Mimi, and I said this on TikTok, and people are like, yeah, but you don't do it on national TV though. It's like, but this is still real life. Though.
Yeah, but also let's remember it's a TV show.
Yeah.
Let's also not be naive to the fact that this is a TV show. So let's just bear that in mind when we're thinking about the comments that we're writing as to why maybe she's done that in that way or why she was up there in the first place. I think that's really important to remember. Yeah. But I also think like Mimi's a queen and people are fickle. So like everyone loves Mimi. And I just think this is like not very nice things to be saying about dragging her on TikTok. Like, why are we doing that? Like, we should be tearing women down. Like, we should be supporting her and being like, Mimi, you are worth so much more than this girl. Remember your crown and adjust it and dust it off.
No.
But in the same time, let's not be dragging women down because we've all been there. We've all been in love or whatever it is that she's got, these very intense feelings. Let's all remember we've all been there before and we've all made silly like mistakes. Look at me. I was being mugged off on national telly for 2 weeks as well. And, you know, you just got to move on from it. You got to accept it, brush it off, and just live in that moment.
Oh my God.
We've all been there.
So what are we thinking then? Like, because I actually don't know who's going to end up in the finals. So who's better suited to who? So you've been in there, Jess.
Yeah.
You've seen it. You've been on the ground.
I've been on the ground.
You've sensed the energy.
Yeah.
You've sensed the synergy.
Yeah.
Where does it really lie? Is it Io and Mimi? When you see them together, do you see that spark? Or when you see Io with Jess, do you see that spark? Or when you see Io, when you see Mimi with Josh, because you've forgotten about Josh.
Yeah.
You know, so where does it all lie?
The difference between Jess and Mimi is she's like this calm, cool and collected princess, you know. She's just very like understated. She just sits and she just sits pretty and doesn't really say much in big situations. She's just always very calm, opposite to me. So you've got Jess, who's a bit more like me. She's a bit fiery. She's a bit like, you know, bubble, like all these kind of things. So for me, on the outside, I think Jess is amazing, but I think she's this like fun, like exciting thing. And she brings that out of Io, whereas Mimi brings out this like calmness to Io and this like, this zen and this like chill. So I guess it's supposedly like up to what he wants. Does he want this fun, bubbly, all this kind of, or does he want someone who can just bring him back down to earth and be calm and collected? He was obviously with Mimi a really long time, so they definitely had something really special. Do I think that Jess might just be exciting and just something maybe new? I think maybe. And I think Mimi might be more long term. But again, I'm not living in his head. I don't know.
But the show finishes next week, so what do you
I know,
mean?
he
Like,
needs to do he needs to decide.
something-
Also, Josh though. Josh is also very, very like chilled and cool but very like manly and just the way he treated Mimi is all them things that she deserves, like the breakfast, you know, the terrace, all them things.
So why isn't Mimi fully honing in on that then? Because it feels
she
like
likes
she's not.
Io.
Yeah.
We've all been there. When
And
you like
I feel
something,
like
it doesn't matter.
Josh knows.
He does.
He's not
He's
silly.
not an
He
idiot.
knows.
No, he's not. He knows. But it's whether he's prepared to kind of continue that, knowing that that's lingering in the background. But he's not a silly boy. Like, he's very much probably aware of that. And I think the bottom line is that Mimi probably is kind of holding on to a little bit of hope that maybe something might happen with Io. But I feel like her feelings, I think she's kind of put these feelings in a box with Io and just been like, these can never resurface again, but they're always still going to be there. And then any little thing that he does, they kind of come more to the surface. Yeah. But I do like her and Josh together, and they do get on really well from when I was in there, but her and Io got on really well as well, so it's hard.
Damn. Honestly, that situation has stressed me out so much, but I just want the best for all of them.
I know, she
Want the
deserves
best
the
for Mimi.
world, and she'll make the right decision,
world.
but she will deserve the world.
Who do we think is going to be in the finals, and who do we think is going to win?
I want Kieran and Nicole to win.
I think that they'll probably win because they're probably one of the only couples.
Couple, yeah.
Maybe I was trying to be soft.
Yeah.
But I was trying to be gentle there. But yeah, maybe the only couple in there who actually you can see really working on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, Sean and Matilda, exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget about that. Exclusive and girlfriend in one app.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, I think Kieran and Nicole, I feel like personally, like they were like my best friends in there, both of them. So I've kind of seen their journey from the beginning to the end, like where they used to have these massive rows and it all used to escalate and it would be horrific, to kind of how they've grown on their own as well, like how they deal with situations has been lovely to see. And I think where they've not necessarily had tests involving other people, which everyone kind of says you need a test, no you don't, the test that they've had has more been about how they deal with situations, how they react, and I think that's lovely to kind of grow in that way on the show. Yeah. So I definitely think theirs is like the most genuine, and they absolutely do deserve to win, and I think they probably will. I hope so.
Oh, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. How are you dealing with social media? Because like, I think I said this to you before we started recording. Like, again, you are a very like bubbly, strong girl, like no nonsense, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it must be like still quite tricky to kind of like come off the show and like see all of these comments.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with it, and how are you kind of like just like choosing to kind of look over all of the stuff, all of the negative stuff?
I mean, for me, like I have got really thick skin, like, and everyone keeps saying like, "Are you okay?" Like, really? And I genuinely am okay. I mean, it's not going to sit here and say it's lovely to have the comments that have been on my Instagram. It's not nice. However, I'm quite good at just channeling that into like positiveness, because for as many nasty comments, there is some like equally lovely comments where people are saying we need like more strong women who stand up for themselves, and we shouldn't be tearing women down in the media. We should be bringing these. We should be encouraging it. And that's lovely to think that people have that opinion. And obviously people are entitled to their opinion. If you don't like me, don't like me. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's fine. But honestly, I've been overwhelmed by how many lovely comments, there has been just as many negative. But yeah, I'm just gonna block. I was more upset for my family having to read them because it's never nice. Your family, I think they probably take it worse than I do. But I kind of expected it. You get press calls when you come out and they kind of explain what the narrative was. And yeah, I just feel like you just got to ride it, you know. These things happen, you know, but I'm actually doing all right. I'm good.
I'm glad you're doing all right. Jess, you are the prize. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.